with Birth Song Botanicals. You want to go ahead and tell us what you do, dear?
Hi, right. So I'm Maria with Birth Song Botanicals, and I'm a midwife and an herbalist and the creator of Birth Song Botanicals. And we make all these nourishing herbal remedies for women and children. And we specialize our remedies for women for their healthy menstruations so they don't have to suffer in so much pain or bleed so much. And then we help women nourish themselves optimally while they're pregnant and prepare for their birth. And then we help women postpartum in their recovery process. And so they can bond with their new identity of being a mother and with their babies. And then we help them breastfeed so that women can feel confident about feeding their babies and making enough milk. And then we make all these remedies for children so that they can have healthy, strong immune systems, so they can sleep well at night, they can feel bolstered up and strong and have vibrant children that are, independent and can go out into the world. And so that's essentially what our products do and what I've been doing for my whole life is creating that and living that life and offering those services to people.
Awesome. How long have you been a midwife? How long have you been doing this?
So I've been a midwife since the year, licensed midwife, 2004. Being a midwife, I was an apprentice, and so I would say I entered the world of birth in the year 2000. And and then there's a whole long story just to get you ready and prepared to be qualified and capable of being an apprentice. So it's been a long journey. So what year is it now? 2020.
Yes.
I've been a licensed midwife for 17 years.
Very
And I've
nice.
attended hundreds of births in Northwest Arkansas. And just recently I made the decision to stop attending births and to focus in on my educational and my herbalist practice. And so that's been a real shift of not being the physical midwife at a birth, but being a midwife in a different capacity. And I have a YouTube channel, and I'm teaching and sharing all these concepts about all the things we just mentioned about birth and natural health and women's empowerment and botanical medicine and female power and understanding and trusting our bodies. So I'm becoming a midwife and maintaining that and just expressing it in a different way now.
Got you. Yeah. So what would you midwives are kind of in some states they're even illegal still, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So I know when I with my last birth, it was kind of a shock to the family about doing a home birth. Um, but is it it's safe, right?
Absolutely. Well, okay, let's
Let's get into
let's
that.
talk about safety.
Yes.
So there is a clear parameter of what a healthy low risk woman looks like, and a healthy low risk pregnancy and a high risk pregnancy looks like. And high risk pregnancies, really should be managed by a person that's skilled in high risk births. We're midwives, we're experts on healthy, normal, physiological birth.
Okay.
The vast majority of women, like 98% of women, have normal, healthy physiological births, and they have these like variations of normal. And midwives are acutely skilled, trained, equipped, and adept to manage and handle all those situations at home. And if they're not, they're skilled in a capacity to transport and transfer someone to the next level of care. So from my perspective, I'm a midwife. I've come from a long line of women and children that have been born at home. So midwifery is a natural extension of my life. And so I feel very confident in saying for a healthy, low-risk woman, home is just as safe as anywhere else to give birth. It's not so important the four walls that you give birth in. It's more important your internal landscape of how you're prepared to give birth. And having said that, I think it is absolutely ridiculous and must change that midwifery is not legal in all states of the United States. that needs to happen, and the time is now, and we are the people to make that happen. And so when we vote in legislators and when we have home births, you are an inspiration, and you are helping other people wake up to their own innate trust in their body, to instinctually trust their body and trust their baby. It is so important to do that, not just on the moment that you give birth, but for the rest of your life. It ripples out into every other experience that you have. It ripples out in how you show up in the world. And so a home birth, from my perspective, is safe and empowering. At the same time, you have to ask yourself, if you're the newly pregnant person and you're trying to decide home, hospital, birth center, what are my choices, you have to kind of get to know yourself, and in what capacity, how much personal responsibility am I going to bring to the table? Do I want someone to just take care of it for me, or do I want to take the reins? Right? It
Yes.
also, you have to ask yourself, like, who's available? Is there a skilled midwife available in my area? Is there, so there are some pieces to the puzzle that there's not a one size fits all answer. But if there's a skilled care provider in your area and you want to take personal responsibility and you're healthy and low risk, then I say interview the midwives. And even if your family is coming at you from their perspectives that might be fear-based, it's really just because they love you and they want you to be safe and they want you to have and that baby to be safe. They just don't have the information that you have, and they don't have the resources that you have. And so if you're dealing with family coming at you from a lot of different angles, now we live in the age of the internet, send them to resources like there's a great website called Citizens for Midwifery, and that has a lot of resources for the family members to help them realize that you're not making just this like flippant, like, fuck the, or I should say, forget the system. Forget the system. I'm going to do what I'm going to do no matter what. You're making an informed, empowered decision that's like grounded in truth and reality. And I'm sorry that I did that on the show.
It's okay. But thank you for explaining that. And, you guys do have uh, situations and stuff in place in case there's an emergency. And I know, like, with my midwife and stuff too, she was experienced in like emergency, like rip and tears. She was experienced in like cord mishaps and stuff like that too.
Yeah, everything that pops up, what's going to pop up? There's going to be a problem with either the fetal heart tones, and so they're going to be listening for that. They're
Yeah.
going to be experienced in managing, like what you said, a nuchal cord around the neck. They're going to, or to recognize if there's going to be a cord. They're going to be experiencing and managing tears, hemorrhage, shock, and then just all the fear, pain. I mean, they can't take your pain away, but they can find ways to help you feel more comfortable. They can, and once you have a big trust in the process, you or your partner and your family members understand what's happening, the level of fear just really minimizes. And then if anything becomes out of their capacity, then they should have their phone in their back pocket, and they could either get you to the hospital quickly as possible if it necessitates an urgent transport, or get the ambulance to you. But the vast majority of transports are not urgent transports. Every once in a while, in the hundreds of births, I've only had to call the ambulance a few times, and I've only had a few urgent, like must get to the hospital quickly. The rest of them have gone to the hospital because we had plenty of time to get there. We had plenty of time because the labor had stalled out, and she needed some compassionate. She needed an IV and maybe some compassionate pain meds, and maybe the baby needed to be born via cesarean, or maybe not. But it wasn't an urgent call. It was, we're going to go together as a team, and now we're going to give birth in this new location. And then the midwife typically, at least I always did, stay with the woman while she's in the hospital, and if she has to go, and then continues postpartum care up to the 6 weeks postpartum. So it's not like a drop, you had a problem, see ya. It works out for you. They're with you all the way. That's a big difference. people don't necessarily realize the word midwife means with woman, like she's with you the whole experience, right? Whereas
Yes.
obstetrician, the name OB, the obstetrician definition is standing by waiting. They're not supposed to be with you the whole time. They're just supposed to come in at the very end and
Mm-hmm.
wait. If you need them, then they show up, right? We've
Yes.
kind of gotten those definitions a little mixed up, right? And so what I ideally would like to see is a more healthy collaborative care where midwives are taking care of the healthy low risk women, and then when it's high risk, then the obstetrician comes in, and there's not this stigma and disrespect, that there's respect for the OB and their skills, and there's respect for the midwives and their skills, and they collaborate and they work together, and then they can serve women in such a broader capacity, and then women can have more empowering, safer births.
Yes. Uh, exactly. That is a wonderful thought. I know with my third birth, it was so much more relaxed and comfortable because I started off at home. Like I was at home. I did the whole birth at home. So we got to play music. I got to move around. I got to
Mm-hmm.
take a bath. And while my daughter and my husband, I had everybody there. I had my dogs there. I
Mm-hmm.
had my husband there. I had my kids there. My daughter was there up until the point that I started pushing. And then she went and watched TV and stuff. But it's much, it was so much more relaxing. And do you find that for a lot of women? Do you have a wide mix of women who have maybe birthed in the hospital and then went home birth so they have like that perspective?
Absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is you're talking about something super important that helps with the intensity and pain of labor and helps with the labor unfold and progress more smoothly is to be freedom of movement, to be unencumbered. You don't need to ask permission to go to the bathroom or to be tethered with an IV or a pulse oximeter and a blood pressure cuff, and you don't have the time clock staring at you in the face, and you're surrounded by love, right? And you're
Yes.
eating your, like you said, your pets and your space and your music and your ambiance and your candles. All that is like on your terms, and so you can open up. You can embrace the intensity of labor. You can go deeper in with each breath, and you can go in further, and so that is hard to do in a room with neon bright lights and strangers coming in, and you're in a gown, and then you got to have your feet up in stirrups, and someone's got to check your cervix again to tell you where you're at, when that's really invasive, right? And so you're having to
Yes.
perform at the hospital a lot of times, and there's this performance, and that is painful and stressful and slows things down and causes complications, where when they're at home, you don't have the same level of performance. It's more like you're surrounded by love and respect and trust in the process. And so I do see that women that have experienced hospital births, they tend to be so much more grateful because they have something to compare it to than the first time mom that's only had a home birth, which the first time mom that's only had a home birth, I always feel really grateful. Like, wow, you did it. You started off with this place. But just as my ego speaking as a midwife, I will say was like, oh, you have no idea what we not like what we protected you from. Like by you choosing this, you protected yourself from this whole unnecessary stressful thing, and I'm really proud of you. But you have really no idea how immense your decision really was until you compared it to another situation that was unsatisfying. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
It does. It does. Like, um, I don't know, just thinking back to my first two births, because my first two births were in a hospital, and you feel rushed. Like, they broke both my waters each time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know, like, that was not a normal thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I had no clue that, your water, they just told me that, oh, my water just doesn't break. And so they just have to break it. But
Right.
with my third, it absolutely went completely normal. It broke all on its own, and she was ready to birth right after.
Right. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but what you just said right there is your water just doesn't break. I need to do it for you. And that's one of the challenges that we have on that like beautiful collaborative practice vision that I have is like, see, that's a perpetuation of a myth. Like your the baby will come out, right?
Yes.
The waters will break. Either the water is going to break when the baby's already out, like as the head is being born and the baby comes out born in the call, that happens, but still the water will break. Because the water doesn't need to break for the baby to be born.
Yes.
Like that's the physiological. So I sometimes these things, and I'm sure obstetricians hear what midwives say, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's not the truth." And then midwives hear what obstetricians say, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, but that's not the truth." We're seeing things from different angles.
Yes. Yes. One from, a super medical point where, and you are on like the doctor's time clock. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why they do that. All the stuff they put in your IVs to speed up the labor and, I don't know, the birthing position they have you in. I know I was super uncomfortable with the first two. Like, I kept asking to get up. I wanted to get up so bad, and you can't. And then I had epidurals with the first two, and then you really can't get up anywhere
Right.
at all. And but they went completely smooth. But at the same time, it just didn't make me feel. I didn't feel a part of it. Like, through the whole pregnancy, you feel the baby grow and all of that stuff. But then it was just such a disappointment. And home birth is absolutely like it completes the journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, because what you just illustrated was your first birth, you were separated from the experience. And when it's a full body, full life, engaging, and when you have a natural home birth, even if it's not at home, but you have a natural birth, you're fully engaged, cognizant, present. Like it is the most expansive, biggest, huge thing, right? There's no escaping. Like, oh my gosh, it's the hugest thing. Then and it shapes you and it opens you wide up, right?
Yes.
Whereas, and then versus when you're comparing it to the first thing where you're separated and numb from it, it's like you miss something. You miss something. And it's not just the baby leaving your body. Yes, the baby left your body, but it's like this whole psychological, physiological, sexual, spiritual experience that didn't happen before because we were numb to it.
Yes.
Or it happened, but we were just numb. And so home birth, you feel, you have the fullness of the feeling of the full experience.
Yes.
And
It's something like natural. And
yeah.
it's an amazing natural process.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm proud of you because it must have shaped you because you're doing this podcast now.
Yes, that was one of the things that kind of it came from, but this all started, I don't know, there's so many pieces that came into this to begin with. Just taking back, like, I've had a long, hard journey in life, and my husband now, the latest daddy from the 2-year-old with the home birth that I shocked him with. Yes. Um, he got me this DVD set of women's empowered jujitsu.
Oh.
Yes. And my first marriage wasn't so easy, and growing up as a female, there were many times where I was put in a not so pleasant position. And this DVD set, the Gracies worked with police officers and taught women how to get out of these positions that either from kidnappings to sexual assault, from positions that strangers use to positions that intimate people use against you. And they have come up with systems and ways to get out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so empowering and triggering all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I don't know, it kind of brought up some stuff. And then my husband actually started a podcast, and I'm a stay-at-home mom right now. He's working, maintaining the household while I maintain the household here. And he was like, "Why don't you do one? Why don't you start a podcast? Like, you know, you're home. What would you want to do?" And so, like, I thought about it for a while. And then I saw an article on Facebook about how victims of rape, like, when they go to the hospital, they take their clothing and they use it for evidence. And they're left, you know, scrambling to, you know, find some kind of clothing. The hospitals sometimes give them scrubs or hospital gowns to leave in. And that was upsetting to me. And so I decided that I wanted to figure something out. And I started researching in California, I believe Denver, and there's another smaller state in the middle that they have like small programs that they start bringing packages and stuff together for the victims. But we don't have anything here in Nevada yet. And so I decided that was going to be my why.
Okay.
And then I started doing this podcast, and all of our stories have such meaning to them. Like, we have all been through stuff as women. Doesn't necessarily just the bad, but also the good, that can inspire others. You know, sometimes just hearing that somebody else has been through something like you, or that they've been through something different, or the way that their day goes or their life goes, or them accomplishing things despite of things, can inspire and help and bring us all together as women. And that's just where it kind of stemmed from. So I've just been going out interviewing women from different points of views and stuff like that, and going from there. And I liked that, I mean, it's such, I think, a not talked about subject, home birth, and like the herbalist and holistic side. Like, doctors scream about stuff so loud, and like there's so much fear, like all the measles and stuff outbreak, the RSV, and all of that out there right now, you know. And you know, I wanted to speak to you about that too, because see what you think from an herbalist point of view, these preventable diseases. What do you think about those?
Well, it's hard for me to totally, like, I can't make a blanket statement about vaccines. I didn't vaccinate my son either. So I feel I totally relate to that. And I've made a lot of videos about some of these, like you said, RSV and some of these, they're common childhood illnesses, and then sometimes they can be like really life-threatening. But most of the time, if we can manage them effectively at home, it's just part of being a kid and part of being sick and then getting over it. And so I've got on my channel some videos about RSV specifically, not measles. I don't have it on measles, but to help you be like, okay, I'm at home, my kid is sick, what can I do? These are some herbs. These are some like hygiene things. These are some things I can do around my house when the kid has a fever, an earache, when they're coughing, so I have resources for that, because I feel like, because as a mom, that's how I create. All of Birth Song Botanicals products came from my direct experience, either of me being a midwife taking care of people, or me being the pregnant woman that needs to recover, or me being the breastfeeding mom that can't make enough milk, or me being the mom that has a sick kid and being like, okay, well, he's not vaccinated, he's not going to go to the doctor. Well, it's up to me to figure it out and trust that his body will get healthy. And so I just went into herb school and started trying things. And my poor little boy, he's my little guinea pig, actually. And so all of our children's collections, I got like 5 or 6, stomach soother, immune boost, daily immune, children's tranquility, respiratory support, earache oil, children's cold and flu bath. That all came from him being sick and me figuring out how to get him healthy again. And then I made a whole course about it called Herbs for Kids. It's free. When you go to the website, you can get the free course and you can see all those videos. And so I guess that's my perspective about it is if you're not going to vaccinate and you don't want to get caught up into what the doctors are saying, then we got to get educated and you got to make friends with other moms and you got to make friends with the plants because the plants, the herbs are our allies. They're there to help us and support us and keep us healthy. And a lot of them are safe, especially the ones that I'm working with in my Birth Song Botanicals. Every once in a while I say, oh, no, this extra little thing about this herb. But most of the time I'm going to only work with them and share with them because they're, as a general rule, they're safe for little people and for pregnancy. I'm working with a delicate population of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to just say all herbs are safe, but I'm saying there are a whole category of herbs and learning how the differences between nourishing herbs, medicinal herbs, and poisonous herbs, and learning how to work with them in dosages and what ones combine well takes a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
Takes a little bit of time and resources, but it's really empowering when you start mixing your own stuff or you have a little patch of lemon balm and peppermint and you're growing that and you're giving it to your kid that has a fever. It just feels really good. And so if they want a resource, get the Herbs for Kids book and watch some of those videos. And then I also have a whole collection of ready-made for you, like Herbs for Kids kit, so you can have them cover your bases at home, right?
Yes.
Because it takes for all of the things you're talking about, empowerment, self-defense. I'm also a martial artist, so I definitely want to talk to you more about martial arts. Empowerment, self-defense, home birth, raising your kids naturally, being an herbalist, all of that comes down to personal responsibility and comes down to connection to the earth and connection to something natural and connection to your resources. Your resources meaning other people in your community, your resources meaning the plants, your resources meaning the earth and spirit, connecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any tips or tricks that you use, to calm yourself or, when you're having a hard day that you would pass along to someone?
Yes. So when I'm having a hard day, which is, hey, a little bit of every day as a little moment, right?
Yeah.
I sink down, I sink down immediately into my lower dantian. So as a martial artist, that word to me, I know what that word is. But for the rest of us, I sink down into my belly, into my hips. I put my mind into my hips, and then into my legs, into the feet, into the floor, and into the earth. And I establish that root connection, and I breathe down, and I remind myself, I am where my feet are. Because I can be in my head and thinking about this and feeling this and and then a memory or I could be in my head. And so usually my head isn't in this present moment where I am right here. And so once I sink into my hips, leg, feet, floor, earth, then I'm here in this present moment and I breathe into that space until I feel a shift. And then when I feel that shift, I try to stay in my womb space, in my lower dantian. That's a real feminine place to be. And I try to anchor myself in there. So when I get overwhelmed and lost and scared and whatever, I sink down into my womb space, into my hips.
That's good. I like that. Is there any women in your life you look up to that empowered you?
Well, I wasn't going to bring her up, but hearing your story, I'll say Melinda Horn. So when I was in my 20s, I just want to take a step back. I grew up in Northern California where my peers were born at home. My mom was friends with a midwife. I knew a midwife, right? I moved to Arkansas, got really disconnected from everything. And then I went in my teenage years into my 20s. And those teenage years into my 20s, as a child, I was really like loved and supported. In my teenage years into my 20s, that's when I became a victim, right? That's when I was like really disconnected and was like, had a lot of violence in my life and was hurt and was frightened and very disconnected and lost, right? And I
Yes.
met this girl, her name was Melinda, and she was a black belt in karate. And she said, girl, you need to be getting into karate. Because you're going to get beat up on the streets. You just keep getting beat up on the streets. Why don't you just come to karate? And then I was like, okay. And I was like scared, right? You know, and I was a
Yeah.
victim. And then I went to karate, and like, it was like a hardcore school. They didn't like, oh, you're a girl. I mean, it was like intense. And I had to like show up, and it like inspired something in me to like, oh, I need to show up. The only one that's going to defend me is me. Like,
Yes.
and it just really brought out something in me. And so since then, since my 20s, I've trained in martial arts my whole since then, right? And so that whole Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, getting out of situations, that is super important. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is when I trained in karate, it gave me just enough like confidence in myself to take this really long hike. I hiked from Oklahoma to Arkansas. It was hundreds of miles. But on that hike, it was like, okay, you're going to be a midwife. I went on that hike to know I won't come home until I know without a doubt what I'm going to commit to for the rest of my life. So on that hike, it became, you're going to be a midwife. But it was through being martial artist that gave me the confidence to even go on a journey like that. And then it was even through that hike, each thing builds on themselves. And so I've had the fortunate journey of traveling through this world, and I found lots of teachers and lots of mentors and lots of women that have taught me who to be and who not to be, and how when we stay trapped in our like anger and pain and it cripples us. And
Yes.
then how there are some people that have embraced compassion and forgiveness. So I don't even know their names, but the women that reminded me to embrace compassion and forgiveness, they're some of my greatest teachers, even if I don't remember their name. And then, of course, my mentor midwives that took me under their wing and shared with me and brought me into the sacredness of birth and the profoundness of birth, my mentor midwives. And then, and then herbalists, like there are so many herbalists that have taught me so much. And so I keep being in situations where I'm around women that they're giving me gifts even though they don't feel like they're in an empowered place, right? And it's reciprocity. I'm holding space for them and asking questions and reminding them and inspiring things in them, and then they're reminding and inspiring in me. And so right now I feel like I'm in a really, each one of my clients, every client that I've been to, every birth, every baby that I've been to has like somehow taught me, instilled in me something, right? So I don't have one teacher. I have many, many teachers.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's definitely something that like I'm bringing out in this is there are so many of us, like we can learn from each other, and there's definitely not like a hierarchy
Right.
of women. Like we all have journeys, we all have struggles, we all have things we've overcome, and we're not so vocal about it. And we need to be a little more vocal about it. And we need to talk about it more. And we need to show up more too. That's one of the things with, you know, it's awesome that you're into martial arts. I think more women need to get into it.
Me too. I'm like, come on, ladies. So I do all this beautiful qigong stuff. It's really beautiful and simple and it feels good. And then I find myself like, oh, you see this move? This is actually a self-defense move. Would you like to learn it? And they're like, no. And in my mind, I'm like, are you kidding? What are you going to do? If they're behind you, you need to know how to grab them. You need to know how to get close. And actually, yeah, so there's just so much. So I think that'll be coming up in my future more and more because I'm starting to teach more and more Tai Chi and more Qigong. And I just was talking to I train in several arts, but I was just talking to one of my teachers. His name is Sabon Felix. I'm like, we need to teach a women's self-defense class. Like, let's do a workshop. Like, I think I said that like a month ago.
Yeah.
Like, let's do it. But then we didn't do anything about it. And now I'm with you right now. And I'm like, oh, I think we need to. Maybe
Yes.
try it out and get a workshop going and see if that becomes like a piece of what we offer, because
it's definitely something that needs to be offered, and it needs to be out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any words of advice for a younger generation?
For a younger generation, okay. Yes, those of us that have gray hair, we're a little goofy. We are. But guess what? Everybody is. And what I want to say with the younger generation is I'm really proud of you. I'm really proud of you because you were born in the age of the internet. You have so much information on you. You have so many choices, and you have so much constant stimulation that it's going to be harder for you than it was for me to connect with nature, right? And so my recommendation to you is to connect with nature, make that be your priority, to get outside every day. Just, and even if you're men, but if you're women, like I said, sink into your hips, into your feminine place. It doesn't have anything to do with gender or your like beauty or your makeup or anything like that. Just sink into your hips, your legs, your feet, the earth. And whatever is calling you inside that feels like you want to do something, but everybody else in your family and everybody else in your culture is asking you to go over there, but you feel pulled to go. Trust your instinct and follow your heart. It's courageous. It will be risky. It will be scary. It's going to take everything you've got, but you can do it. You can totally do it. And you sink down into yourself, into the earth, and you realize you're not alone. You are well supported, and you have everything it takes to follow your heart and to follow your instinct, because that is wise. Trust your body. Your body is very wise. Your head, on the other hand, is smart, but it can mislead you. And it can attach to all these other things, and it can be quickly misled by other people. So that's what I'm going to leave you with, is trust the process. Go deep into your body, listen to your body. And for this, and also remember one other thing for younger generation, don't wait till you're old to like learn to forgive. Make forgiveness a practice now. It'll just save you layers of suffering.
Very nice. A time that you felt empowered.
Times that I felt empowered. Most of the time I feel the most empowered is when I am like on a mountaintop, or in nature, in like one of those epic nature moments. Or I feel empowered when, because you mentioned martial arts, when I get out of my head trying to like learn a form and learn something, but I just get into my body and I let the form teach me. I let it teach me, and I'm like, oh, I understand that now. So that feels empowering. Other times I've felt empowered is when I'm in a situation where I get to like hold space for people and be a part of their process. When I get to be, I don't want to use the word healing, but a little bit like a part of the healing in their process, in their journey, and that there's like transformation happening. That's always a very empowering experience.
Very nice. An inspirational quote you use at a hard time.
Okay, well, one is the time is now and we are the people. Like, like the time is now and we are the people. So when I feel like I want to like merge this like obstetrician midwife and get this whole like healthy birth singing going. Like, I got to be a part of that. I got to be part of that change, right? I have to,
Yes.
voice has to be, my practice has to be, the products, like our herbs have to be a part of it, the channel, everything that I'm doing has to come from the perspective of a woman is capable to give birth, right? So
Yes.
the time is now and we are the people. That's the first one. And then there's a really beautiful midwife. Her name is Robin Lim. And she's like, one of the greatest skills of a midwife is just be kind. Be kind. You
Yes.
never know where they're coming from. You never know. Just take 1 second and be kind. And so that's pretty rippling out. And then for me also is trusting the process. Just, we're all going through identity shifts and life changes, and we're all striving and doing our best, and we have our good days and our bad days, and we're feeling like we're doing it, and then we get, what am I doing? And so I just have to remind myself to trust the process. Just trust it. And to allow, it's the simultaneous, like there's one other one, is you got to balance effort with surrender. You're like, you have to show up and be proactive and yet get out of your own way. And so at birth, that's very real, right? You have to get in those positions that you breathe and get out of your own way. So balance effort with surrender, trust the process, be kind. The time is now, and we are the people.
Very nice. I like that. That covers the whole gamut.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, that was very nice. Well, that's pretty much it for all my questions in my podcast. Um, I will continue to talk to you in a second. And thank you, everybody, for listening.